Hi, my name's Ebony. Welcome back to my channel. This is where I like to talk about all the spooky books that I like to read. And today is my May reading wrap up, which, look, I don't even know why I'm bothering because this was possibly one of my worst months of reading quantity-wise. I only got through 4 books, been in a bit of a rut. I've had like a little bit of personal stuff going on, so anyway, the reason that I'm still doing this wrap up is because the books that I actually read were good quality. So I thought there's still some things I can tell you about, still some recommendations I can give. I'm just gonna stop yapping and get straight into the books. The first book that I picked up for May was Strange Pictures by Atchu, and I flew through this in about 2-3 hours. I could not put it down. I was holding it while I was making my dinner. I could not avert my gaze from the pages of this book. I had read Strange Houses by Atchu last year, and it was good. I think I gave it 3.5, 4 stars. But this is his first one. This one was next level. I don't know, for me, this just worked. I actually ended up giving it 5 stars. A lot of that was because, like, I couldn't fault it. It made me just want to read, and it was such a great feeling. You know, when you get those 5-star flutters, that's what I was getting in my belly. So I was like, well, I can't ignore that. I don't give 5 stars very often, but I think I've actually had a really good year for quality this year. Even though I've read fewer books, the standard has just been higher. It's really popular, this book, but in case you haven't heard of this book is structured around 9 childlike drawings. There's a handful of stories here, but you're drawn into it. You kind of can put your detective hat on a little bit, and you're encouraged to piece together the story and where the dots will align with the overarching backstory that connects them all these drawings. So I don't want to say much more. Like, it is all, like, you can see this cover, even inside, it just makes it so fun. Like, it's such a unique concept, and the translation by Jim Ryan is really great. I think it's translated in a really eloquent way. It's simple, but I feel like I hope it captures the essence of Atchu's original authorship. Like, I think it's really great. Because I went in relatively blind, I kind of forgot that there was this interconnected storyline. So halfway through, by the second story, my jaw dropped. I was so hooked. I was hooked into this story. So I gave this 5 stars. Again, I think the translation is a lot of that. You're so immersed in this story, and no matter what you do, you'll never be able to piece them together, and that's the fun of it, is it all makes sense and you go, fuck, I'm an idiot. Like, I didn't get any of that while I was reading it, but it's so fun. It's not like some twists and thrillers where it's like, you never fucking be able to figure that out. So I really loved it. 5 stars. Great vibes. You'll smash it out. If you're in a slump, then I do recommend Atchu's books. And speaking of, I went on to the next one. Strange Buildings. This is a chunkier one. This one is like 400 pages. This is similar in vein. It kind of connects to Strange Houses and the author of that book. He's been sent more floor plans from people, but more around buildings rather than just houses, you know what I mean? Each of the buildings in this book tells a chilling story. Each one is part of a puzzle. Look closely and you'll see that everything is connected, all leading to a terrifying revelation. So very similar in vein, where it's like, if you wanted to, you could figure it out. This one is written a little bit more like a investigative story, like trying to figure it out, whereas the other one is more written like fiction. This is kind of gives the air of non-fiction and true crime without it actually being that. So it's really fun. I think I gave this 4 stars in the end. I think it got a little bit convoluted. There's 11 files in this book. Maybe my brain after Strange Pictures just couldn't quite hack it. I think that's where the slump was coming. You know when you get a 5-star book and then, like, it can do the opposite? Like, sometimes a 5-star read can get you like motivated in reading. Other times, often for me, what it does is put me right down on the pits of a slump, you know? But I still really loved it. 4 stars. I said this in like a book group I'm in, that I could read 100 of these sorts of novels by Atchu and never get bored. Like, they're so fun. And as a lover of crime and horror, it just balances both really neatly. And I think, yeah, if you like both those genres, then you will eat these up. And again, translation is done expertly. I have heard Strange Maps is released in Japan now, but it does take a little bit of time for the translations to be done, obviously, and released out here. But I can't wait. I love his books. So I've read all 3 that are currently out. Strange Pictures being my favorite, this one coming in second, and then Strange Houses. I'm not feeling my best at the moment, so I apologise. I hope some of this makes sense, but I still like yapping about books. So I appreciate if you're here, and I hope you stick around for more. Promise most months will be better than this. But like I said, some of these books were so good that I still wanted to have a little chat about them. Next up, I read Dissection of a Murder by Jo Murray. And I do have thoughts about this one. I'll probably talk your ear off for a few minutes. Because this one, if you are a crime thriller reader, you will have seen this guy everywhere. And that's good. I'm thrilled for Jo Murray because this is a debut novel. And as debut novels go, I think this holds up really well in the genre. It's very strong. She's really cultivated her own voice nicely, which is rare and hard. I feel like in these days, I can't imagine being a thriller author. In the year 2026, it would be very hard to establish your own voice. But I feel like she's done that. And so I would read more by Jo Murray. But, I don't agree with the 5-star ratings of this book. Everywhere I turn, this is getting 5, 4.5 stars, which is great. I still enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. I read this in 2 days, and for a 400+ page legal thriller, that's pretty good. Like, I did want to know what was going on. I found it, like I said, Jo Murray's writing really good. Easy, straightforward, but still with enough of a unique voice that it captures something of her, you know? And so I appreciate that. But I feel like, and I may have mentioned this before, when a book, a new release, gets such hype from influencers on Book Talk, Bookstagram, even here on YouTube, I should learn my lesson and not listen to them too much, because I set myself up for disappointment. I would rather not know, but then it's like, how do you find out about these books? Do you know what I mean? It's a tough thing to kind of balance. Anyway, if you haven't seen this around the interwebs, this is essentially, like I said, a legal thriller. This is following Lila, who she has just been handed her first murder case as a defense attorney, defense barrister in the UK. But, you know, this is going to garner a lot of media attention. 1, it's her first case. 2, the defendant has been charged with murdering a judge. The defendant is also refusing to speak or give his defense until he's on the witness stand. Not great. And the prosecuting counsel is her husband. So it's juicy drama. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was really fun. Most of what I enjoyed was the dynamic between Lila and Julian, the husband and wife, and the lead up to the trial. 60% of this book is pre-trial, and a little bit of like investigating with Lila. She's trying to figure out what actually happened because her defendant won't tell her the truth or what happened to this judge. She has to kind of figure stuff out because, like, if she doesn't put forward a defense statement to the prosecution, she can't receive the evidence that they have and that they're going to use. So it becomes really difficult for her. So, but like I said, I really enjoyed the kind of tumultuous relationship this created. This dynamic between Lila and Julian was really kind of pushed to its limits. Like, marriage, while being like this high stakes murder trial of a judge, stressful to the max. Anyway, I do have a reading vlog eventually upload and finish about reading new releases, and I did pick this one up for that. And I do go in depth about it, but in case I end up scrapping that or you don't end up watching it, I'll tell you a little bit about what I did and didn't enjoy about this novel. I think I've already spoken about her writing and her voice. I think that was really good. Is really nice. The premise is great. Juicy and captivating. Will keep you turning the pages, that is for certain. I didn't like the direction it took in the end. There's a big twist that people will discuss in their reviews. I found it plainly obvious that that was where this was going to go, and my hope was that it wasn't going to go there. However, in order for it to be as shocking and mind-blowing as readers are saying in their reviews, there was only one possible person it could be. There was only one twist it could be, because the cast of characters is relatively few. So in order for it to be shocking, it only could be one person, if that makes sense, without spoiling anything. So that was That's one of my qualms. However, I should say, as I've always said, if you've watched any of my reviews, guessing a twist or figuring a twist out doesn't ultimately ruin my enjoyment of a thriller. In fact, sometimes it can bolster it. But for me, it just felt like a lousy is a bit harsh. It felt like an overdone trope. These days, everyone clings on to this specific trope in order to get shock value across. For me personally, it's got to be done expertly. It's got to make sense. This particular trope has really got to make sense for it to land strongly and well. And for me personally, it didn't do that. Maybe I'm in the minority. I feel like I am, but it didn't quite land or make sense. There was chapters as well that were outside of the trial preparation or the trial itself. There was this witness X, and I didn't like those. I don't think they added any value to this story, and it didn't actually help the twist and the reveal in the end. Didn't really do anything for me. Anyway, I also would say, and I'm going to say this very carefully, the message, I appreciate that this had a message. I do enjoy novels with messages, of course. I love to think and I love to feel when I read a book. I like there to be some sort of message and something for you to really contemplate and reflect upon. And this did have a bit of that. However, I felt like it was kind of rammed down my throat in the end because it kept just being rehashed in different ways. Like a same sentence could be reworded about 50 times in the last couple of chapters about the message of this. And so for me personally, I'm like, I love a great, strong female character. I love a feminist novel. I love women taking charge in male-dominated fields. Absolutely. Frickin' adore it. But when the backdrop of that message about how women are treated is this ludicrous plot with this insane twist that doesn't make sense, it flies in the face of that really important messaging. Reading Jo Murray's afterwards, an acknowledgement about her history and her time spent as a barrister in the UK legal system. I can't say what is not and what is not true, because I 100% believe it's still a boys' club, and those old customs and those old rituals, of course, would still play a big part, and I fully support things changing across the world, really, let's be honest, in legal. But again, I just feel like it maybe just wasn't melded into the story deftly enough for it to work for me. All it did was make me roll my eyes a little bit, and I feel really bad about that because I do really think it's an important message. So I think that kind of did take away a little bit of my enjoyment in the end. I enjoy messaging in my horror and thrillers when it's there without being there. Like, I don't need everything to be spoon-fed to me. I don't need people to just like make it obvious. I've got a brain, I can think, I can read between the lines. And maybe not every person can, and I understand that. And some people really resonate with the way Jo Murray did this message about women. But again, when it's interwoven with this really ridiculous plot that would never happen, that doesn't make any sense, and a twist that just makes you like want to throw a book across the room, it does kind of take away from the really important messaging of how women are treated in many systems across the world still to this day. And I don't like that. I don't want it to be missed. I don't know. I could yap about this for a while. And maybe I am reading too much into this. So please, this is just my opinion. If you loved this book, then I am all for it. I still ended up giving this 3.5 stars. So I feel like that's pretty generous considering what I've just told you. And I hope that illustrates to you that this is still a book worth reading if you're a legal thriller person. Like, I think this was really enjoyable and a debut novel. So all props to Jo Murray, because I would read another one of her books for sure. I just feel like maybe the way this all linked up and all was tied up with a bow didn't quite land for me personally and felt quite silly. But still 3.5 stars because I smashed through it. And you'll want to know what happens. So yes, that's my thoughts on Dissection of a Murder. My final book that I literally just got in time on the 31st of May was picked by my husband for me because he likes to pick books occasionally for me. And it is one that I have had on my bookshelf for quite a while and that I've been meaning to read. So I'm glad he picked it up. And that is The Butcher's Daughter, The Hitherto Untold Story of Mrs. Lovett by David Demchuk and Corinne Lee Clark. This cover. I don't know, like, if I prefer this one or the US one. I am going to New York next month. Next month. And I'm thinking of maybe picking up this other cover. I don't know. Which one do you prefer? Anyway, I might not have talked about this on my channel, but I am a lover of musical theatre. I've been in musical theatre since I was a kid. I adore it, and Sweeney Todd is actually one of my favourites. I absolutely froth this music and this story. Gothic horror musicals are some of my favourite, like Sweeney Todd, Jekyll and Hyde, the best of the best. And so that's what made me want to pick this up. And I remember it doing the rounds, I think last year when it was released, and it had really good reviews. And I am relieved to say, different to Dissection of a Murder, that it actually lived up to them for me. This is another dense novel, over 400 pages for what it is, but it's all told through letters from this nun at this priory to a journalist named Miss Gibson. And it's all this backstory, you know. This journalist is trying to find Mrs. Lovett. She heard rumours she's at this priory, so she writes to them, and she ends up in correspondence with this particular nun named Marjorie. Or Margaret. That's all I'm going to say, is that you get a lot of backstory. I really loved the format of this. I think being written in letters, it grips you, but it also feels like they're being written to you. So I found it very immersive. And I loved that there were like articles spattered in there occasionally, or like obvious that Miss Gibson had been writing to other institutions to kind of find evidence for the claims made by this nun in her letters. What I did enjoy as well is that the authors actually never give you a point of view of Miss Gibson. So you never actually see her letters back or her letters to anybody. So I enjoyed that you can kind of infer things, infer your own interpretation. You can also just like almost put yourself into it, like you are Miss Gibson, because there is no voice placed upon her. So I really enjoyed that. I think I haven't actually decided, I only finished this yesterday. I haven't decided how I want to rate it. I actually don't have many bones to pick. I think this is going to land at like a 4, a 4.5. Oh, I really enjoyed it. Again, it could be my love for the musical and the story of Sweeney Todd. There was a moment in the middle chunk where it felt a little bit laborious and quite slow going. And that was probably because I was getting impatient to meet Sweeney, you know? Like, you are waiting for her to meet him and how that's going to happen. I quite enjoyed the interpretations that the authors made and their version of this. Like, the only thing that's knocking off a 0.5 star for me is actually the way that they brought Sweeney Todd to life. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me, especially when you're waiting for him. And I understand this is Mrs. Lovett's story, not Sweeney's, and so that's totally fine. And I loved her story. There was a lot in it that I enjoyed. There was some things that I didn't really love. But overall, I found her quite a compelling character and sympathetic. And I enjoyed that it's like, in the end, you go, again, not spoiling anything, but in the end, you can go, did she actually tell us the truth, or is she painting herself as a victim? Because it's like, Sweeney and Mrs. Lovett is just as much a monster in my eyes as Sweeney Todd, regardless of her history and where she came from. I enjoy the version of her that is just as responsible as him, if not worse. Anyway, but you can kind of just make your own decision, and I thought that was a clever choice by the authors. Sweeney, though, I think I loved the initial introduction of him, that he was like this towering giant with hands as big as spades, and he was handsome with dark hair, and his aura, like his presence was enough to send the most powerful, brash, violent men cowering like little dogs. Like, I loved that. I was like, that's new. Like, I really appreciate that. Rather than him coming across as like a gentlemanly, old-fashioned barber, that he was this giant of a man and really intimidating to other people who would usually intimidate the weak, you know? So I was going, hell yeah, like, we're in for a good. And unfortunately, ended up feeling like Sweeney Todd became a caricature of himself. Like, it became just a bit goofy, you know? Caricature is the best word to describe it, because I was like, they didn't give him any substance. And in the musical, he has quite a lot. Both of them do. They have quite a bit of substance. And there wasn't any of that brokenness and that depth to him that I wanted, and I completely understand this is not his story. And that Mrs. Lovett, in her writing of her history and where she came from, was probably trying to make him out to take all the blame, you know. So again, I don't know if that's giving the authors too much credit, because that may have been the intention, and that it's like, actually, she's just fudging this and making him a monster and making him a caricature. So if that was what they intended, then all props to them, because I picked that up. If not, it just ended up feeling a bit goofy, and he's one of my favourite characters in any musical or story. And so unfortunately that didn't work, because it was like, he would be like, walk in and go, wow,
I want a good throat to slit, Mum.
like, I don't know. I should have tabbed it to find these specific moments, because it was so silly. He just became like, I'm a monster, I'm a monster. Because even when it was brought up, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but it's Sweeney Todd. If you know the story, you know the story. Even when it was brought up about his history of like his child, which in the musical is Joanna, you know, taken by Judge Turpin. That was not in this. Judge Turpin didn't exist. Joanna was in there, and I quite enjoyed Joanna and the sailor and how that all linked up. Tobias, like Toby, I didn't mind that. I didn't really vibe with that storyline. I did like the kind of nuggets and homage paid to the musical and original story, obviously. But then this version was like, oh, it all linked up. I can't tell you. But anyway, he had a kid. The kid died, and it sent his wife loopy. She's in the madhouses, blah, blah, blah. That was it. That was all it was said. And he just brushed past it, and she kind of goes, oh, so is that what made you this way? Like, you wanted to play God? And he was like, nah, I just like it. You know what I mean? I was like, that's not how the Sweeney I know is. And he was tortured, and he was trying to find his child, and he thought he lost his wife, and all this stuff that I really enjoy was not in there. And it made him, I'm going to say it so many times, but it made him a monster. He wasn't a human being anymore, whereas I tried to make herself human. And again, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm sure that was what the authors were hoping for, was it was like, she's trying to make herself out to be a victim this whole time. Sweeney's a monster. He made me do it. I had no choice. I had no choice. When that is plainly not true. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so I feel like this is a really good book for discussion if you know the story or the musical, or if you love this. I quite liked the ending. The ending caught me off guard. Oh my God, I wish I'd like filmed my reaction to literally the last line of this book, because I think that solidifies that 0.5 as well. So I feel like 4.5 is where I'm landing on this, because could have been a 5-star if Sweeney had been more fleshed out and interesting, and then taking that away could have made it a 4-star, but then the ending bumped it back up. So 4.5 stars for this. Like I said, lots to, again, I only finished this yesterday, so I'm still kind of like grappling with everything these authors did. This would have been a freaking nightmare to plot and piece together. And I would love to know how 2 authors do this, and which ones wrote what and how they did it, because I think it's quite a tour de force to be able to put something like this together. And it really spoke to my musical theatre loving heart. And as an actor, I'm like, oh my God, if you're playing Mrs. Lovett, this would be such a cool book to read. You know, you could be like, backstory, I'm going to make myself more interesting. No one will ever know. But it's like, I would use this one day, if I get the chance to play Mrs. Lovett. I hope I remember the storyline of this. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on The Butcher's Daughter. That is everything I read in May. I know it was only 4 books, but I've managed to freaking talk your ear off for quite a while about them, because like I said, even though the quantity wasn't much, the quality was much. And I am really happy with how my year is going quality-wise. My average rating is sitting at like 4 stars across the whole year so far. And that was not the case last year. I was reading some real crap books, real stinkers last year, and I'm sure I'm going to have some stinkers later on this year, or I've just gotten better at picking my books for myself. You know, I feel like that's the thing, is like the more you read, the better you are at knowing what you like. Anyway, so my top book for May, my top recommendation is Strange Pictures, if you're in for a quick horror mystery, or if you want something more in-depth Victorian Gothic horror, then I would pick up The Butcher's Daughter, especially if you love musical theatre. Then I think you'll enjoy this. In May, I'd love to know what your favourite book for the month was, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!